Hi there, welcome back to the Big Thinker universe. Today I'm going to introduce the last of our Catalyst crew, and then I'm going to give you some specific examples, give you some ideas on how this might apply to you. And for the record, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you how to do it necessarily today, but my goal is for you to say, Jeff, I'm curious, tell me more. So if you are AI curious and you'd like to learn more, after I introduce the team, then I'm going to jump in and I'm going to share a little bit of the thought process that went into building these. Now, we got to be fun. We got to be quirky. Una came back from Disney World and never let the ears go. So Una obviously is inspired by Minnie Mouse. She loves it. Una's job is to determine the unique selling proposition that we offer to the world or our clients do. So she's obsessed about how are we different. Now, last but not least, we have Wendy Weaver. She is our website design expert. And basically, Wendy's job is to communicate to the world who we are internally. By the way, I've been told that the sun behind me is blinding. That's not the real sun. It is just a picture of a sun. So I'll use my big head to block it. There you go. Big Thinker universe, we cause solar eclipses. So by now you've met my existing Catalyst crew team. And for the record, you're probably thinking, well, Jeff, I don't need those. I need this. Or, what about this? Why didn't you do this? Reality is I'm human. Shocker. Pause, take a deep breath. I have the exact same 24 hours in a day that other people have. I have a family. I have obligations. So for me, my little AI crew, it's a labor of love. And what I do is I build them as I need them. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of the thought process that goes into it. And then hopefully, if you're curious, you can take this away, you can play with it. For the record, there's a couple of different ways to do it. You don't need to be weird like me and build actual custom GPT models. You could use this framework in a conversation to get best results. Now, one thing I will say, a lot of people come to me and say, Jeff, I think ChatGPT is primitive, it's basic, it's error prone. I've heard this about it, I've heard that about it. And one of the things that fascinates me is that most of the people who complain about ChatGPT in particular are using the free version. And I'm sorry, but in what world do you fully expect the best in a free thing? I personally think free is good for beginners. But if you're serious about growing your business, if you're thinking, man, I should hire an employee, the reality is the paid subscription for ChatGPT, I don't even know what it is at the moment, but it's something around $20 a month US. Think about that. If you would hire an employee and pay them to do something, why wouldn't you give your employee a $20 tool so that they can do that something better? And in this case, if you are the visionary, if you are the founder, why wouldn't you pay the $20 a month to get access to that best practice? So that's my little rant. If you are using the free version of AI and you're complaining about AI, guess what? User error. So here's the thing. I'm going to share how I use AI. I'm going to share why I use it. Here's how I think it applies to you. So do what I do if you want, and I'll walk you through the steps in this video. Believe it or not, it doesn't take long to do it. I have a board game I love to play called Othello, and their tagline is, it takes a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. AI is the same. All you need to do is decide, I'm going to start today, and once you start, you're on a rapid learning curve. So the logic I have is when I personally encounter a problem and I know something is painful to me, I know it's slow, I know it needs to be done, I'm not ready to manage, a VA or, God forbid, go to Fiverr and ask somebody to do it because I don't know what it looks like yet. So what I do is if it's something critical to my business, I sit down with my AI model, and I will share this with you. Either you can build it as a model so you can do this thing over and over. So if it's highly repetitive, I build a model. If it's a one-off problem that I need to solve, I use a conversation. So that's my filter. Repetitive, I build a model. One-off, I use a conversation. The way I do it is the same either way. It's just, it's faster. If you know you're going to do this thing over and over again, you might as well take the time to train a model to do it. So I have a project management approach that I use. And what I do first is I sit down and, like I said, if it's conversation or if it's an AI model, I use a conversation to build an AI model. So I'll talk you through my conversation, which then is something you can use to create custom GPTs. So today we're not going to get into the how of custom GPTs. The why is if it's repetitive, you might as well have a virtual AI model that does the repetitive thing. It'll do it better than you, it'll do it faster than you, and more consistently than you. And if it's something you don't like doing, it gets it done so you can move on to something else. So here is, in a nutshell, how I have a conversation with ChatGPT. Most people will say, I've seen this over and over. I typed in, how do I blank? And AI gave me an absolutely stupid answer. Well, first and foremost, how do I blank is a stupid question. If you ask a bad question, you will get bad answers. So the secret to AI, don't treat it like a Google search term where you're asking it for, grocery store near me. Think of it as a conversation you would have with an actual expert. If you ask an expert a bad question, you're going to get a bad result. So without further ado, here is my process in detail. So I sit down at the keyboard and I tell ChatGPT what I'm thinking. So basically, I'll say, ChatGPT, here's a problem I have. Here's what I think a solution looks like. Here's my end objective. Here's what I absolutely must accomplish in this. Here's how I determine success. So that's my first little prompt. I'm sharing with ChatGPT what I want to accomplish and what I already know. So I share that and I hit enter, and ChatGPT will give me a bit of an analysis and it'll give you some suggestions. Most people would stop there, copy paste, and say done. I'm sorry, but that is wrong. That's kind of the equivalent of pulling an egg out of the fridge and saying, there, my omelet's done. You can eat it, but it's not going to taste as good as if you go through all the steps. So the first step is give it the background. And by the way, if you have an employee or if you're building a team, you should be doing this with your team members too. Here's what I think. Here's what success looks like. Here's the outcome. Now, when you hire a who, the right person, thank you, Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, when you have the right who on your team, they should know how to get the thing done. However, first time something's done, nobody knows how to do it. Therefore, we explore it. So I adopt a project management / research methodology. Step 2 is I ask it, based on my understanding, based on what I've shared, what categories of experts can help us with this solution? Now, categories is important because AI will bring in a bunch of things we don't think to ask. And by the way, that's the reason most amateurs, most beginners fail the first time they try something. They don't know what they don't know. So if you're looking at a new thing to solve, you don't know who can help you. So my first question is, what categories of experts can help me and why? And what I love is AI will analyze what I've shared. It will go out to its large language model, its databases, and it will come back, and it seems to come back with about 10 categories of experts. And I promise you, there's always a category I hadn't thought of. So what I mean by that is if I have a marketing problem, I'm trying to figure out how to get better at LinkedIn, I'm going to go to Google and say, who can help me with LinkedIn? The thing is, that's almost solving the problem near the end. The reality is we need to think about what goes into a LinkedIn solution. So LinkedIn is about storytelling, it's about connecting. So usually you'll get things like, obviously you need marketing experts, you need LinkedIn strategy experts, LinkedIn tactical experts, but you also need something like communication. By the way, if we have a conversation, usually this is how I talk because I don't want to solve the problem that somebody brings me with, because 9 times out of 10, I find they don't actually know what problem to solve. They're trying to make their pain point go away. So, first thing, we identify the experts. That's step 2. Step 3, so step 2 was categories of experts. Step 3 is individual experts. So what I do is I will now say, ChatGPT, thank you for that list of categories of experts. Within those categories, who are world-renowned or world-class individual experts that might have some insights into solving this problem? And this is where AI goes from not being that bright to being laser focused, and it's getting smarter by the second. It will go out and say, okay, based on your 10 categories, here are 2 experts per category that are world renowned for that specific field. And that's where you start to get really close to what a good solution would look like. So step 4, and this is where I start to get chills, I get excited, I have all kinds of fun things. Step 4, I ask it, based on these experts, what advice would they have for us as we start on this project? And it is amazing because it'll line by line, it'll tell you what the experts are, what they say, it'll give you some feedback. Now, full disclosure, you are the grown-up. You need to read this and make sure it makes sense. For the record, I would not do brain surgery by asking AI to help me do brain surgery. But when I use AI in my business, I know generally what I'm trying to accomplish. I just need to know how to do it best. I still know enough to say that doesn't quite look right, or wow, that's amazing. Thank you. I hadn't thought of that. So we ask it for advice. Now, the next step, we ask AI to take that advice and help us come up with a framework of best practices. So based on the experts, based on their advice, what are some best practices that we must consider in order to optimize our solution? So AI will give you an answer based on best practices, and then I'll share my thoughts. Always, you are the adult. You'll ask it questions, you'll share its thoughts. And then what I like to do is, what questions must I ask these experts to take their best practices and adapt it to my business? And then here's a nuance. Next one, what questions must I answer for these experts to best adapt this to my business? I've lost count of steps, doesn't matter. The notes will have it. But the next step is, can you help me draft an outline for the solution? Key is it's a draft. I always usually start with a simple draft, and then I'll say, based on our simple draft, our simple outline, can we create a detailed outline? And what that does is it takes it from bullet point down to a little more detailed. And based on the detailed outline, and depending on what my objective was in the first place, then I ask it to create a system or process to make sure that me and my team do this consistently. And then the final thing is, what training would my team be required to have in order to do this? Help me create the training program.